Good afternoon, everyone, and I want to thank you for joining today's eClaims webinar. My name is Anthony Contento. I'm a program manager in the eClaims unit, and joining me today is Mike Hunter, who's also a program manager in the eClaims unit. And we do ask that you please keep your phone lines muted, and we're going to be using the Q&A feature to receive your questions today. And you can go about asking your questions and getting to that Q&A box through a couple of different ways. You'll see that on the lower right-hand side of your screen, you should see a Q&A box. And when you send us your questions, please select the All Panelist option. And you can also hover over the top of the WebEx tab at the top of your screen and click on Q&A to submit your questions. And speaking of questions, as we answer as many of your questions as we can, there may be some questions though that we don't get to today, or you might think of something at the end when the presentation is closing out, and we will be providing you with contact information at the end of our presentation so you can send those questions to us. And I'm going to go over today's agenda. The first thing we'll be discussing is the July 2023 eClaims change log and table changes published with new edits that will be forthcoming in the beginning of next year. The second agenda item would be that some friendly reminders about timely FROYs, FROY 02s, and insurance fund changes, and et cetera. And then we'll be going over acceptance after denials, and then also some other reminders regarding STROY SX or STROY ACs, et cetera. And then finally, we'll be going over the most frequent errors returned during the past 90 days, and then following up with our question and answer session. So I'm going to go over some of these eClaims changelog items. The first item is 353, and we went ahead and changed the jurisdiction claim number, and we changed it on 0005 from green to a blank one per the IIBC changelog. And we also changed DN 0005 MTCUR from green ampersand sign or @ sign to blank per IIBC changelog. We also, on log item number 354, changed DN 0184, 0185, 00314, and 0017 MTC AQUR from orange to blank per IIBC. For changelog item number 359, we modified the STROY 02 reportable change codes for update from Y to YG. And we also added an exception on the STROY exception tab to read the following: STROY 02 change to be filed when DN 0193 or DN 0418 has changed, and the last accepted STROY report on the claim is an XX, ignoring 02s or an SA. For change item number 364, we also updated an element error text for all DNs defined as amounts to remove the word value from the error message. It was value must be greater than or equal to 0. We have now changed that to be must be greater than or equal to 0. And on change item log number 367, we added L under error 120, no embedded spaces per the IIBC changelog item. And please note that we've also grayed out this new error as we will not be applying this edit. We also have a relaxed edit to go to and change item number 363, where we relax population restriction 0031-064I on a FROY 02 and a STROY 02, so that DN 0199, which is a full denial effective date, will only need to be updated to be on or after DN 0031, which is date of injury, if the denial is still in effect. So the July 2023 eClaims changelog item published announcing edits that are going to be implemented beginning of next year, January 18th of 2024, for DN0063, which is the wage period code. So the following new edits were posted on the New York State eClaims changelog back on July 14th of 2023, providing you with 6 months notice provided in accordance with the IIBC Claims Electronic Data Interchange, or EDI standard. The file text protocol filers should ensure that their systems are coded accordingly to avoid any rejections after January 18th of 2024. These two item ID numbers are 355, which is the wage period code, changed both the FROI 02 and SHROI 02 reportable change code for remove to J. And the business need was essentially to allow the wage period code to be updated on the FROI. We also changed 63 wage period code on item number 356 to add a new conditional requirement for the FROI 02. Now, for the July 2023 eClaims changelog that were published announcing edits on January 18th of 2024 for DN0064, which is the number of days worked per week, the following new edits were posted again back on July 14th, 2023, providing you with a 6 months notice according to the IIBC Claims EDI standard. And please note that FTP filers, again, should ensure that their systems are coded accordingly to avoid any rejections after January 18th, 2024. And the two changelog items were 357, DN0064, which is number of days worked per week. It modified the FROI 02 and SHROI 02, the reportable change code for add and update from K, which is required change on the FROI, to J, and that's a change on a SHROI if accepted, otherwise changed on a FROI. And we basically needed this based on population restrictions being applied. So this allows 0064 to be updated on an 02 along with DN0204, which is the work week type code, as well as DN0205, which is a workday scheduled code, which both have a reportable change code for add and update of J. And finally, for changelog item number 371, we also modified population restrictions 0064-064 A and B to include all O2s. And we have another eClaims changelog item published that will be implemented on January 18th for SHROI data elements. So the following new edits were posted again on July 14th, 2023. And please note, FTP filers, ensure that your systems are coded accordingly, to avoid any rejections after January 18th when they will be implemented. Changelog item 361, we changed severity rankings on 40 data elements on SHROIs from NA to AR to resolve issues that flat filers with last reported data element for O2 changes saw. For items 360 and 362, we changed DN0097, the dependent payee relationship code, DN0425, dependent first name, and DN0426, dependent last name, and finally DN0427, dependent date of birth on the SHROI SA from NA to MC to resolve issues for flat filers with the last reported data element for O2 changes. And we also, on line item 369, removed MTC SA from 0424-045, which is the number of dependent payee relationships, due to change in death dependent severity rankings from NA to MC, listed in a previous changelog item number 362. Now, we're going over some eClaims changelog published announcing edits that are going to be implemented on January 25th, 2024 for DN0043, which is a new DN, which is the employee email address. So the following edits were added to the New York State eClaims changelog on July 14th of 2023. And please, again, note any FTP filers, ensure your systems are coded accordingly to avoid any rejections after January 25th for this particular DN. line item 358, we added a new DN0443, which is an employee email address, to the FROI element requirement table with the following severity rankings. FROI 0004 AQ AU UR equals AR. FROI 01 would equal NA. FROI 02 on add, update, remove, K, reportable change code, which is required change on a FROI. FROI 02, delete, which would equal B, which is restricted by IABC change rules. And that is noted on the IABC change log ERT 232. And the position is R21, 1210 through 1259. Change log item 368, again, the same DN. We added L under error 120, no embedded spaces, and 121 no leading spaces per the IABC change log. And please note that we've grayed out error number 120, no embedded spaces, as we will not be applying this edit. And finally, DN 443, line item 370, the new population restriction, which will be implemented again on January 25th, DN 0443-111 must be a valid email that has an embedded @ sign. And the element error text will read, must be a valid email with an embedded @ sign. And to further that, again, eClaims changelog items. The following new edit was posted back on July 14th, 2023. On line item 366, new population restriction for error 111 will be added to all DNs identified as alphanumeric. If an alphanumeric number is sent on a data element that the board has asked for, then the value cannot be characters that are not found in the IABC Claims EDI standard under the acceptable character list for alphanumeric data types, which are listed in Section 2 of the IABC implementation guide. And I won't be reading through these characters, but please note them and refer to them at Section 2 of the IABC Claim Implementation Guide. So next up, we're going to be going over chart of DNs triggered on an O2. So the board's reference document chart located at that link on your screen was updated to reflect the change O2 element requirement table changes that were posted in July of this year. Now this document is meant to be a quick reference guide for severity rankings for the O2 change for data elements requiring an MTC O2 to be triggered. So please take advantage of this when needed. So now we're going to be going over the next part of the agenda of our presentation, a reminder for timely FROI filings. So I'm going to go ahead and read these to you, but please keep this in the back of your mind as a friendly reminder. So there's an 1810-day rule, which is defined in the New York Codes, Rules, and Regulations, Section 300.22, that on or before the 18th day after the disability event or within 10 days after the employer has knowledge of the disability event, whichever period is greater, the carrier, special fund, self-insured employer, or TPA shall file electronically a first report of injury, or FROI, with the board. Now, disability event means any accident, including death resulting, occurring in the course of employment, or any alleged accident, including death resulted therefrom, results in personal injury which has caused or will cause a loss of time from regular duties of 1 day beyond the working day or shift on which the accident or alleged accident occurred, or which has required or will require medical treatment beyond ordinary first aid or more than 2 treatments by a person rendering first aid, or any disease or alleged disease, including death resulting therefrom, claimed to have been caused by the nature of the employment and contacted therein. So again, as a reminder for the FROI AQ and AU requirements, when the new claim administrator takes over a claim as stated in the event table, this should be filed on all active cases, including closed cases that medical is being paid. And failure to file the AQ or AU could result in issues with the PAR dashboard assignment. So that's another important aspect of this update and friendly reminder that we're giving you. And, this penalty would be imposed outside of the monitoring unit process, but could be imposed at the case level based on statute. So a reminder for the 402 requirements when an insurer-fen changes. Remember to file 402 transactions when an insurer-fen changes and you are paying indemnity and or medical, as this could affect a priority authorization request dashboard assignment. When the board receives a transaction and the insurer does not match our insurance company records based on proof of coverage reporting, a request for the 402 is sent at the case level. The 402 should be filed or a response to the request should be sent indicating the policy information so a determination can be made to change the primary insurer on the file. And then finally, the board could impose a Section 25(3)(e) penalty for failure to file a required form. This penalty would also be imposed outside of the monitoring unit process, but could be imposed at the state level. And a reminder for the 400 URSA requirements when indemnity is being paid. A SROI SA should be filed in all cases where indemnity is being paid. A 400 or UR may need to be filed first, though, on some of the old cases. If another claim administrator has acquired the claim, please turn off your SROI SA trigger. And failure to file these transactions could result in issues, again, with the prior authorization request dashboard assignment. And then finally, again, the board can impose a Section 25(3)(e) penalty for failure to file a required form. And again, this penalty is imposed outside of the monitoring unit process, but could be imposed at the case level. So next up, Mike is going to be going over the next few slides with you, starting with acceptance after denial. Mike?
Thank you, Tony. We wanted to just do a few reminders from previous webinars regarding acceptance after denial. So for some folks, these slides may look familiar. First, we want to go over acceptance after the FROI 04. So to accept a claim after a FROI 04 for cases with a date of accident prior to January 1st, 2019, you need to submit a FROI with DN74 claim type code other than N notification only. If you try to file a FROI 00 with N after your FROI 04, it will be rejected. For cases with a date of accident on or after January 1st, 2019, you need to submit a FROI 00 with DN75 agreement to compensate code of L with liability. If you try to file a FROI 00 with W without liability after your FROI 04, it will be rejected. A quick note that if you're filing a FROI or SROI 02 to change a data element and you wish to maintain your denial, you want to ensure that you're leaving DN75 agreement to compensate code null. Some trading partners have accidentally submitted L with liability, and that could be interpreted as an acceptance by the board's claims and adjudication units. Acceptance after a SROI 04. To accept a claim after the SROI 04, a SROI needs to indicate what event has occurred, such as the SROI initial payment, acquired payment, employer paid, compensable death with no dependents, employer paid, reinstated, reinstatement of benefits, or a SROI PY, the payment report. Any of those would need to contain the benefit segment showing that you're now actively paying benefits, and that would show acceptance, or you can also file the SROI 02. For cases with a date of accident prior to January 1st, 2019, you will need to send in DN 196, date of rescission. For cases with a date of accident on or after January 1st, 2019, the agreement to compensate code shows your acceptance of the claim. Similar to the FROI 04 reminder, again, when filing that 02, just make sure that if you're changing other data elements, you do not accidentally submit DN75 with a code such as L with liability to, again, possibly be interpreted as an acceptance. Acceptance after denial. A few of the FAQs were updated recently. We realized that we had one of the FAQs in two different sections on our page. So on January 28th, we did update those FAQs to remove number 7 under the appropriate MTC filing, and we did renumber the remaining FAQs under that section. We also just updated number 5 under data element reporting to read the following. And again, you can visit our website, and those FAQs will be there for you. Also wanted to do a quick reminder during this webinar regarding the Troy SX, the suspension report, or the Troy AC acquisition ceased from the prior claim administrator. A suspension is required each time an indemnity payment for a period of lost time is made, and no further payments will be made. DN 418, suspension reason code full, will identify that reason for us why those payments have ceased. DN 233, suspension narrative, is required to further detail the reason that those payments have ceased. Pursuant to Workers' Comp Law, Section 25(1)D, whenever, for any reason, compensation payments cease, the employer or its insurance carrier shall, within 16 days thereafter, send to the chair a notice on a form prescribed by the chair that such payment has been stopped. It's important to file a Troy SX prior to acquisition by a new claim administrator if you've suspended benefits prior to that claim administrator's acquisition. In Release 3.1, there is a Troy AC available for a claim administrator in case the previous claim administrator had never filed their suspension. The board will return DN 410, acquisition status code of B, Troy due, on the acknowledgement file from a Troy AQ or AU if that prior claim administrator did not file a suspension. So be sure to check your acknowledgement file. If you're filing Troy AQs and AUs, we would return that code letting you know that a Troy is due. Claim administrators must notify the board that payments are not being made within 16 days of receiving B Troy due in that DN 410 acquisition status code on the returned acknowledgement. This is pursuant to Section 300.23. If payments have not ceased and there is a Troy due, then the Troy AP should be filed by the new claim administrator, letting us know that you've begun payments. DN 423, acquired claim last known indemnity through date, is mandatory conditional on an acquisition indemnity ceased the Troy AC. The condition is it's required if DN 203, employer paid salary prior to acquisition, is not equal to E, which means only the 2XX employee benefit type codes were paid prior to the acquisition. Now we're just going to go over the most frequent errors returned during the past 90 days. The first one is related to population restriction DN 0085-064A. This is the most common error for the last 90 days, and again was our top error for 2022, and was a carryover from Release 3.0, and is not a new edit from 3.1. This population restriction is intended to prevent a new benefit type code from being introduced as a sweep benefit if not previously submitted as an event benefit, or as Troy UR or SA included the benefit type code. This is based on the IAIBC Claims EDI Section 4 rules. FTP filers should ensure their systems are programmed accordingly. The one exception to this that I will note is we do have a few edits in place that if you happen to miss some historical benefits, in some instances you may file the SHROI 02 as long as that benefit period through date does not exceed the current benefit period through date. We also recently did outreach to a few trading partners who we noticed had the highest rate of these errors. So if we did reach out to you and you have any questions, you are welcome to also contact us. The second most common error returned in the past 90 days, again, is a Release 3.0 carryover. And this is to ensure that DN75, Agreement to Compensate Code, is sent with liability after the board has issued a notice that the case has been established with ANCR, ODNCR finding in accordance with Section 21A. FTP filers should ensure that their systems are programmed accordingly, again, to avoid further rejections. The third most common error in the last 90 days is another Release 3.0 carryover. This edit supports the IAIBC Claims EDI Section 4 rules that do not allow benefit type code of 0XX to be introduced on the SHROI SA, as a prior event should have been reported. This, again, is very closely related to the top rejection, and FTP filers should ensure their systems are programmed accordingly to avoid further rejections. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Tony.
Thanks, Mike. Again, thank you for coming to today's presentation. We're now going to start the Q&A portion of the webinar. And again, as a reminder, please enter your questions in the Q&A box, which is located in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. And again, you can also hover the WebEx tab at the top of your screen and then just click on Q&A to submit your questions. And again, please submit them to all panelists. So there's going to be a period of brief silence while we go over those questions, and we'll get back to you shortly. Thank you.
The first question is asking if someone misreports the employee ID assigned by jurisdiction, can they submit an O2 to update the employee ID assigned by jurisdiction? Yes, we did relax that in 3.1. So if there is an error, you can make a change to employee ID assigned by jurisdiction.
The second question we got is regarding timely 4A filings on the 1810. When the final day to pay ends on a weekend or holiday, is a criteria for timely payment shifted to the next business day or the prior business day? For example, if the 18th day is a Saturday or Sunday, is a carrier okay to pay on Monday? So the board filings, all of them filed New York State General Construction Law. So if the date falls on a weekend or holiday, the due date would fall on the next business day.
Question about FTP files and formats for the changes coming out in January. If you do submit them on that Thursday night, they are processed that next morning. So you do want to make sure that those files are in the new format. And the next question was asking if we go back over the need for a prior claim admin's requirement to suspend benefits before the new claim admin files their AQ or AU. That is specifically if payments were suspended during the prior claim admin's handling of the case. For example, if Mike Hunter's benefits were suspended on January 15th of 2023, and the new TPA isn't taking over until March 1st, that previous claim administrator should file the SHROI SX and suspend benefits. While we do have the SHROI AC available, if it's not filed, technically benefits should have been suspended within, in that report filed within 16 days. So that prior claim administrator could still face a penalty for failure to file that SHROI SX.
Well, that seems to be all the questions that we received so far today. So again, if you happen to have any questions after, this closes, please feel free to send it to us at eClaims@wcb.ny.gov. And please visit the eClaims website at wcb.ny.gov to stay up to date on eClaims news. And again, we want to go over that you can also sign up to receive news straight to your inbox. You can go ahead and select the WCB notifications option on the eClaims website at the board's website at wcb.ny.gov. And that's within the eClaims overview section. And with that, I think that is it. Let me check one more time to see if we have any more questions. Looks like a couple may have come in, so give us a couple of seconds while we review those questions. Thank you.
About when FROIs are due, as far as the legal timelines and whether they're due or not, and when suspensions are due. Anything to do with those, we would have to refer to the monitoring unit. You can email them directly at monitoring@wcb.ny.gov. There's a question about the frequency of these meetings. We've been trying to do them every 2 months. That doesn't always work out due to conflicts and schedules, but we do still send out the email blast when we do schedule to folks who are admins and business contacts. If you're not getting those and you think you're an admin and business contact, you can send an email to the eClaims mailbox, and we just verify that you're still on our contact list.
So I believe that's all the questions we have. If we do happen to miss anything, miss any of the questions that you may have submitted, please, again, feel free to send them to the eClaims mailbox at eClaims@wcb.ny.gov. And again, please follow the board on the following at the New York State Workers' Comp Board on Twitter, which is now called X, on Facebook, on Instagram, and also YouTube page. And again, if you'd like to get updates sent straight to your mail, please go to wcb.ny.gov/notify or WCB notifications link off of the eClaims overview page. And with that, I thank you very much for attending today's meeting, and I hope you all have a pleasant afternoon. Thank you.